All right, you guys want to talk about the caveman?
We got a caveman story coming up.
We still have 18 parts to or 19 parts to the caveman.
That's insane.
Yeah, well, let's start unearthing this caveman.
I mean, should we do a little recap of what happened in intro the Dorito floor?
Give like a 30-second recap.
I get into a lease, not really a lease, but with my high school bully, and I realize that he is a slob. I have just stepped in for the first time the school year into this like horrible apartment or horrible house that is covered in Doritos.
And,
So
and the story picks up right there.
story picks up right there, literally as I step foot into a Dorito. So as you guys know, I name each of these episodes, and this part is called Part 2 Cage Free Meat. And this will become important later. So I take off my shoes and I step right into a Dorito. And I realize that this house is going to be horrible. I step back out of the house, try to get as much Dorito dust off my sock as possible, and put my shoes back on. I then learn that this house is now officially a 100% shoes on at all times house. I never walked around barefoot in this house because no matter where you step, there was a Dorito. Literally, I'm not joking to you guys. There was Doritos covering the entrance to the kitchen, and then from the kitchen all the way to like his bedroom.
I'm trying to picture this. Like intact chips of Doritos.
Yes, like crumbs, Dorito chips, the whole nine.
How did this happen?
I don't know. I literally do not know.
And you didn't ask?
Well, there's a reason why I didn't
All right,
ask, and we'll
I'm,
get to that during this part of the caveman
I'll stop
saga.
interrupting, Max. Take it away.
No, if you guys have questions, you gotta interrupt.
All
So
right.
I'm like, freaking hey, man. So I bring the box of stuff I have to the back. I go back into my car that's still covered. It's still filled with stuff, and I have stuff that needs to go in the fridge. But I'm like, I gotta handle this Dorito problem first because there's Doritos everywhere, and I'm not tracking Doritos all the way through the house. So I start cleaning up the Doritos with the broom and the stuff that I have um in my car. So I sweep up all the ones at the entrance and in the hallway. I put it into the thing into like the little dustbin. I'm like, okay, it's time to go throw this away. So I tiptoe around the Doritos that go into the kitchen. And by the way, this is a very old house. It was built in like the 40s or the 50s. I don't really remember. And I go into the kitchen, which looks like it's still out of the 40s. And I notice the dishes in the sink have been piled up all the way to the top that it is touching the faucet.
That's an achievement.
Mm.
It is an achievement, yes. And it smells horrible in the kitchen. I go over to the trash can. The trash can is full and overflowing. And his solution to the overflowing trash can was to put the lid on top of the overflowing trash.
Well, at least he put the lid on there, man. He tried.
And the recycling bin, which I don't believe a recycling bin should be in the house. I think that should be an outside thing. Like I think if you have a recycling object, you should have to go and bring it to the recycling bin outside yourself, and that's something that I really believe in because it just kind of just takes the space and makes your kitchen look horrible. Because no one ever has a lid for the recycling bin. But that was overflowing, and he had like 1,000 milk jugs around around this recycling bin. Like the whole house was just horrible. So of course it took me like 20 minutes to get all the trash that had fallen off when I pulled the bag out of the trash can. By the way, when I pulled the trash bag out of this thing, it was like almost disintegrating. I go outside, I flip open the trash can, and there's a trash bag that's been in there for probably 2 months. I can already see the maggots crawling out of this trash bag. And I say, this is a problem for future Max. Because I have stuff that needs to go in the fridge, like pronto. Because it's going to go bad if it sits in my hot car this whole time. So I clean up the kitchen besides the dishes. I'm like, that's a problem for future Macs. I need to get this stuff that's cold in the fridge as soon as possible. So I get the stuff out of the car, bring it over to the fridge. I've cleaned up all the Doritos off the floor. We're like 30 to 45 minutes to being at this new home. Right?
And the guy's not here, right?
The guy is not here. Nobody's here.
Oh, okay.
It's just me. I'm just alone. Also, by the way, they never told me the Wi-Fi password or what the Wi-Fi was. So there's nothing for me to entertain myself besides my own thoughts. By the way, there's furniture in this house too. That will be important for a very later bit. None of it is mine, which is also very important. All of my furniture is in my room or in Z's room because of course, when I went and checked the room that was supposed to be mine, all their stuff was still there. And I was like, come on, guys, really? So I open up the fridge and get hit with the most vile smell of my life. Every sauce container that was on the side of the fridge has been opened and is dripping onto the side of the fridge. Like on those shelves. You know there's shelves when you open up the door of the fridge?
Sure.
Just sauce and gross stuff everywhere.
Ugh.
Inside the fridge is mold. They had mold was growing in the vegetable containers. He had a 50-pound sack of cheese open. It was just shredded cheese open out to the open refrigerator. He had one hot dog on the glass and cage-free meat, which is what me and Z called his ham. The reason why we call it cage-free meat was because he had this little miniature ham that he would cut slices off of and eat. The issue was that he never bagged it up. It was always cage-free, and he would just either put it on the glass or he would put it somewhere around the house. And it would sit out for a couple days before it managed to get back into the fridge.
He just had like a hunk of ham.
Of ham, yes.
Where do you even get
Like
that?
a small little ham that he was
like
cutting
you just
off
bought
of.
like a family ham from the grocery store.
Yeah, but it was smaller than a family ham. It was probably like a half-pound ham.
And he just left it sitting there in the fridge. Nothing else. Just that piece of ham.
Just that piece of ham. He had like a whole bunch of other expired stuff in there.
Well, yeah, I mean, but he would just take chunks out of it when he was hungry.
Yes. Yeah. And that cage-free meat comes important here later. So, of course, I'm like, shit, I got to clean this refrigerator out before I clean any of this. I got to clean the refrigerator out before I put my stuff in.
Still got groceries.
Yeah, because I got groceries. So, I'm like, I need to get to that sink to clean my stuff out.
Oh, no.
The sink is not just glasses that I originally thought. The sink is filled with trash. He had been using the sink as another trash can. Right? So I'm like, what is this kid doing? And of course, it's filled to the top. So for me to clean the dishes, I either have to scatter these dishes that are covered in ketchup and peanut butter across the kitchen, which means I have to clean the counters, or I have to clean the dishes on top of the trash. So I decided I was going to clean the dishes on top of the trash, which was a horrible mistake because by the time I finished doing all the dishes, 30 minutes later, because I needed to find dish soap, because of course he didn't bring any dish soap, so I had to go dig through my car to find a box that had dish soap and a towel. After I finished cleaning all the dishes, there was about 2 rolls of toilet or paper towels in there, and about, give or take, 45 pepperonis in the drain.
Of the
and I had to
sink?
fish in the sink, yes.
Oh, my God.
And I had to fish basically all of it out. And he had this bad habit of putting toilet or not toilet paper towels in the sink, and that's a story for another day, and it is a great story. So I cleaned the sink out, and after I cleaned the sink, it's like been, I don't know, like an hour and a half, and I still have not seen him. And my stuff, the ice is basically melted in my coolers. And so now it's sicko mode. I have to go ham to try to get this fridge clean after touching all that gross stuff in the sink. So I basically take the fridge apart, throw away everything besides the cage-free meat and a couple other things I think he can keep. I have to take all the drawers out and wash all the mold out of them because there's mold in them. And I never used those drawers once I realized there was mold in them. I was like, I'm not putting shit in those drawers. Cleaned all of the shelves, did the whole nine. I put the cage-free meat back. I put my stuff in. And then after like 3 hours of being in the house, I could finally start unpacking my car. So I spend the next 2 hours unpacking my car into Z's room, essentially, because I have no other place to go. So I'm like, okay, let's have some dinner because it's already dinner time. I got there at like 12 o'clock and it's already 7 o'clock by the time I'm done. Let's have some dinner, and then after I'll do the dishes. So I take one of my meals out, I eat the meal, and just silence, by the way, because there's nothing else in this house to do because I don't have the Wi-Fi password, and that's like the gatekeeper of anything to do. So I eat my meal in silence, I wash the dishes, and then the door opens. And here comes drunk caveman at 7 o'clock on a Sunday. He comes stumbling into the kitchen. And there's a guy with him. Now, let me describe Caveman. Caveman is like 6'4", probably 220 pounds, give or take.
He's a big guy.
And he's a ginger.
All right, simmer down.
I'm just bringing up facts about this story. And he's all excited to see me. But he's so drunk that his words barely make any sense. And he's talking about how he's been here all alone because his sister and his sister's boyfriend left him. By the way, there's just some random guy standing in the doorway. No clue. He didn't introduce him to me. And I'm just like, we gotta blur his name.
We'll blur that out.
We gotta blur that name.
Blurt that out.
So I'm like, all right, caveman, you're drunk. Like, just do your thing. So, of course, he goes for the cage-free meat first. And he cuts himself off a couple slices, and I bring up the hot dog thing. I'm like, dude, that's gross. And he laughs it off, and he bites a couple things into the cage-free meat, the sandwich he's made, and then he turns the cage-free meat around. And I never turned the cage-free meat around,
Because he wouldn't touch
but
it.
the whole other side is riddled in mold. It's like a corpse. That's what it reminds me of. It's like a zombie show corpse.
He's sitting in the fridge.
And sitting in the fridge. And he's like, hey, is this good to eat? And I said, no, caveman, you should throw that out. And he's like, okay. And he goes and throws it out, and then he makes a peanut butter and jelly. But he takes 2 knives to make the peanut butter and jelly, right? He starts by scooping out peanut butter from his peanut butter jar, putting it on one bread, and then he takes another knife and scoops out jelly, puts it on another bread, and then puts both knives in to the peanut butter jar, not both. It leaves them on the counter, closes the sandwich, starts eating it, and walks away. And he was like, hey, this is my buddy. We're going to go drinking again. I never saw that guy ever again. And I yelled at him, and I said, caveman, what are you doing with these knives? You got to put your stuff away. And he comes back, and he's like, okay, I got it. And he pulls both the knives out, chucks them into the sink, and then puts his uncapped jelly and peanut butter into his cabinet, and he leaves.
Ugh.
And then I'm sitting there, 2 knives in the sink, and I've realized that this has been the biggest mistake in my life.